over here, okay? So you're hyped up, right? You're ready to blast across your piece of paper. Now you're going to be commander of that piece of paper today. You're going to control it with three-dimensional drawing. Okay, well, of course, we use all 7 magic words, plus a super important art word, which is proportion. Now, drawing with us today, we have 2 club members. We have Betsy and Roland. Are you guys all frenzied up? You ready to draw?
Yeah.
Okay, loosen your hands up. All right. Now, you have your pencils sharp and your paper set in front of you. All right, now we're going to draw some townships today to show you what proportion means. Now, let's start the township by drawing a foreshortened circle right here. And later on, we'll build some skyscrapers and some roadways and a building right here. But first of all, let's draw another foreshortened circle right in the inside of this one. We'll create almost like a flying saucer effect. Another foreshortened circle in the center. Now see, I left a little bit of space over here on the one side, a little bit of space over here on the other side. Darken it in so you can see where you're drawing. And then put the thickness here. Curve the bottom. Now, if you want to, you can take your paper and turn it upside down because your hand draws these curves much more naturally than pulling your hand down. Of course, my paper's too enormous to turn it over. But if you have your little piece of paper on your lap in front of you or on the table in front of you, it's really easy for you to turn it upside down and draw that nice, natural curve. Let's put a bubble on the township. Now, this is just an idea for a township. You can do anything different to this township you want. You can add another bubble on top, or you can draw a forest inside here. Instead of a city, you can draw a floating forest for your space station. Draw a dome. And then we'll put some cities or skyscrapers or a really neat skyline inside this dome. Draw some vertical lines. We'll draw a vertical line here, and one here, and a smaller one here. Now, we're going to be looking up at this building, so when you look up at a building, these lines slant down from the top vertical line. And your eye level is right across here, so you see the bottom of the building. So draw a direction 1 there, and draw a direction 7 here. And watch this. See how easy it is to draw a skyscraper sitting there in the middle of your little dome? And then we'll draw, and watch this is really interesting. We'll have a step building looking up at it. We'll come down here, a vertical line, draw another line slanting down, the same slant to the top of this skyscraper, and see it's almost a step building coming down. A line up in direction 1, and then we'll just draw this and have it connect to the other building. Now proportion, if you want to make this drawing look really huge, a really giant building inside of a giant dome, we'll draw little tiny windows, and proportion will help make those windows look like they're really tiny and the building look really huge. See, if you put little tiny windows here, looks like that skyscraper's about 100,000 stories tall, doesn't it? See this? And then we'll put some more windows over here and over here. And let's draw another looking up building. Using proportions, kind of neat to create the illusion of a giant building. And of course, we'll use a little bit of shading on the left side. A little bit of shading here. Now remember, on square objects like these buildings, the shading goes all the way up to the corner and it stops. And on a curved object, like the base of the floating township, it's blended. It's very dark over here on the left side, and watch this. See, it blends from dark to light. Lighter and lighter as it moves across, lighter and lighter. And it goes right across right here. See that? Now let's see how Betsy's keeping up with me. How are your drawings doing?
Fine.
All right. See, Betsy, this is really creative. You started the drawing. Sorry, Roland. I didn't mean to crunch in on you like that. Here's the dome. And look at this. You put another bubble underneath. That's a really good idea. It's a neat idea. Let's take a moment to get to know a club member a little bit better.
Hi, I'm Betsy Jablonski. I'm 14 years old and I attend Towson High School. I enjoy a variety of creative things, including drawing, dancing, singing, and live theater. I guess I've always had an interest in art and creativity because my mother is an artist too. I mostly like to pencil sketch people, creatures, and living things. I also love crafts that involve different mediums. Here's an example, a Christmas card. I cut the leaves and letters out of colored paper and glued them to a paper base for the three-dimensional look.
That was really neat how Betsy took a bubble and extended the bubble from the top down to the bottom. Now you see, you can take these basic shapes and you can use your imagination to add anything extra. In fact, I'm going to use that idea right now, and we'll draw another bubble down below here. See, I like taking really good ideas and adding them to my drawing. So go ahead, draw another bubble down here. if you want to draw some buildings looking down, watch this. See, I'll just extend this building right through here, and just see how it's upside down building, and this probably rotates around to create the gravity in space. And then I'll just extend all these buildings down through here, and down through here. And then later I'll shade the left side. Now we have a special guest, Dick Schaefer, here today, and he's creating some architectural objects with 2 other club members.
The project we've got today involves the skyline. Tim, do you know what the skyline is?
Isn't that the outline of the buildings in the city?
That's right. It's the buildings on the horizon in the city that make the beautiful silhouette that we often see. One of the most important elements of the skyline is the church spire. And our project today is to complete a church spire by adding the steeple to a tower. I've happened to observe lots of churches in town. Here's one, for instance, a church that I found that looked suspiciously unfinished. You see this tower here? I sort of felt that perhaps the architect intended a little more to do with his design of that church steeple. Coincidentally, I found a book on the designer of that church, and it seems like he did have very much more in mind. If we compare these two, you'll see that's what his design is, and they only completed that much of the church steeple. I've selected this church in town. Here's a photograph of that church. The kids and I went and measured the church. I built the model at a 1/4 inch to a foot, and our project is to start at this tower top, which is 16 feet square, at a 1/4 inch to the foot. It's actually 4 inches on all sides. And what we're going to do today is first design by way of drawing what we think would be a very beautiful steeple on top of this tower. And then we're going to use some materials and actually build it and place it on our model and see what it looks like. Yes?
Is this the actual size of the, not actual size, but I meant a little smaller, but exact to the
That's
building?
right. This is an exact scale model in that you can measure on the model using a 1/4 inch to a foot and find out exactly the size that the elements are.
How long does it take to make a steeple, build a steeple onto a church?
Well, in some building, especially church construction, sometimes the building's done over a long period of time, and the way I like to look at it is not that it's really finished at this point, but just it's at a pause where there'll come a day when they'll complete the original design.
Do you have any ideas for a steeple that should be on this church?
Yeah, I brought some material here that you can look at, and you can use this to start your design. So we'll check back and see how we're doing.
You can use proportion in your drawings all the time. You can create the illusion of size or create the illusion of really small objects. Proportion helps you. Now we're using proportion here on these buildings by putting small little buildings to create the illusion this is an enormous structure. Now I'm going to continue this building down through here, and I'll make maybe a twin tower like they have in New York, except I'm connecting mine right here. And then I'll slant these 2 lines down, and then I'll shade the left side. Okay, left side right here. Are you keeping up with me all right? Make sure your hands are loosened up and your pencils stay sharp. Blast across this paper. You just be a drawing bulldozer and be confident with your pencil. You know those magic words now, and now you have another art word underneath your belt, so you should be getting really confident and real enthusiastic about your drawing. See, isn't drawing fun? You start drawing, you start bulldozing over your paper, you get in a real good mood, right? All right. A little more darkness up here, and I'll blend with my finger all the way across all these buildings, right along here. And maybe I'll put some kind of a propulsion unit coming out of the back, curve the end, and have maybe some kind of a cloud back here, a vapor cloud or a dust cloud, and then add some shading underneath here. Now I want to challenge you to create your own township, your own version of what your Secret City township would look like. Would it have a bubble over the top? Would it be a metal structure over the top? You think about it, and I want you to draw your own township. And I want you club members to do the same thing, all right? Look at this drawing right here that Roland's done. You've been just bulldozing over your paper, Roland. You're in a good mood today, huh?
Yeah.
Just cranking away. Here's his little, see, he used proportion. He made this township look small and this township look big. Draw, draw, draw. Practice your drawing every day, 20 or 30 minutes. And the super important R word to keep in your mind, what is it?
Proportion.
All right, good job.
I have been designing floating townships. I began drawing one idea, and as I drew, it changed and changed and grew into an entirely different thing. My finished drawing was fantastic. By the way, have you joined the Commander's Drawing Club? If you haven't, you should. All you need to do is send a drawing to the Commander, and you automatically become a member of the Secret City Club. This week's activity is to draw a floating township. Here's an example of a wonderful drawing by a club member. Look at the wonderful spires and the wonderful towers. Send your drawing to Secret City Club, Post Office Box 444, Morago, California, 94556.
Our project's moving along rather nicely. Vlad and Tim are both in the process of drawing their designs before they build them. How are you guys coming along?
Really good. Yeah, I finished mine.
I brought some projects done by another group of kids. I thought maybe you'd like to see what they've done. Matter of fact, looking ahead to building these things, you can see that in here, this kid used just a paper cup. So you can use all kinds of things as part of your design.
I like that one the best.
Yes, this is very good. Often you see that a lot of church spires have the excuse of having a place for the bells or for the clocks. In this case, there's both. It's a clock tower and also a bell tower. This is very nice. I particularly like the way that this guy made the transition from the square shape to a 8-sided octagonal form on top. Show how simple it is to use different materials. This is one I did out of using just some paper, some tape, and fits on top here. And to give it a little bit of detail, I just used some yellow thread to wrap around the church steeple.
I bet this took a lot of time to make.
Yeah, this one's kind of interesting. This one seems that I used lots of different elements, lots of colors, and lots of forms, lots of shapes. That's just the very kind of thing you can do and should do when you're designing. I don't know where he used these parts. I think maybe it came from a game or a toy or something. But I think that's a very, very ornate design. Sometimes these in themselves look very simple, like this one does. It looks very simple in itself. You put it on top of the tower, and sometimes it looks very appropriate. I think that's a very nice design too, even though it's quite a bit understated.
How you doing?
Oh, pretty
Hello,
good.
club members.
Pretty
I'm
good.
gonna man.
I have been watching your spires here, and I'm very interested in your spires because I've been designing floating townships, and I have many towers and spires in my design. I have a question, though. With all of these designs, how do you know the proper proportion?
Well, that's a good question. Often when you're working from a model, you tend to look at this just as a bird's eye view. And to get the proportion right, for instance with this one, sometimes it should be over-designed from the bird's eye view, so that when you're down at ground level where you'd be in a real church,
Well, let me get down there with you, okay?
so you get the proportions right. sometimes things that look right when you stand over it, like this, sometimes from the ground, the proportions are just too small to really be the best design that you have for a tower. Another thing you should keep in mind, too, is that the spire portion of this doesn't necessarily have to look anything like the tower. Here's one where it looks very much like the tower. The tower and the spire is made up of the same elements as it gets smaller and smaller to the top. However, here's a design where the spire doesn't look anything like a tower. The tower is a big stone, square shape, and the roof on top is round and made out of a different material.
Well, I'm finding this very interesting, and I'd like to study your spires a little bit more so I can continue my designs, okay?
Sure, Madam Man.
I hope you're practicing your drawing 20 or 30 minutes a day. And you know, if you practice your drawings, you'll be king of that piece of paper, and you'll be drawing three-dimensional drawings in no time at all. Now let's look at the gallery, some of the drawings, some underground transportation systems that the club members have completed. Now this is Sharon's. She has it colored in too. Isn't that beautiful color? Look at the bottom texture. Look at the foreshortening, the shading, the size, and the surface. All the magic words are used in this drawing. You can pick them out. Oh, I love that. Good job, Sharon. Let's look at another drawing. Here's another underground transportation system. This is called the Descendo bus. Look at the line of characters lined up and they're ready to get into the door and take these neat little shaped carriages down to the underground, the underplanet. Beautiful drawing, nice shading. Try to pick out 3 spots where the magic words are used. This is incredible drawings. What imagination. Where do you get all your ideas? Betsy, where do you get your ideas?
Well, for the floating cities, I just think of what floats and see if I can put a city on it.
Can I take a look at your floating cities?
Sure.
Take a look at this, Roland. Now this looks like it's floating in the ocean, right?
It is.
What a neat idea. See, most people, when they think of, floating townships, they think of floating in space. And so you took your imagination, you just poured it out of your pencil on a piece of paper. What a neat idea. Can you tell me a little bit about your drawing?
Yes. These are just bubbles floating in the water, and they're fueled, or they're propelled through the water
by this little propulsion unit here, huh?
By blasts of air.
And what's this?
Seaweed.
That's the seaweed floating in the water currents. This is really superb drawing. I'll give you an idea in a second about how to make it look a little more three-dimensional, all right?
Okay.
Let's take a look at Roland's drawing. Ah, superb drawing. Look at this fantastic idea. Looks like you have 2 space skyscrapers, and you have it on a floating space station, right, Roland?
Yep.
And what kind of energy propulsion unit is this? What does it run on?
Runs on plutonium.
Plutonium? This is a good idea. See, I like the way you take your pencil, and you see, you're not afraid to draw it dark. You just go right over your paper. See, a lot of people are real timid with their pencil. They're kind of scared to draw. They draw a line, and then they have to erase it. But you don't worry about that. You just go right over your paper, huh? Good job. I want to give you an idea right here on how to make this thickness look a little more three-dimensional. So look up here. I'll flip this paper and give Betsy an idea of how to make that energy propulsion unit look a little more three-dimensional. See, if you have your really beautiful bubble there with your city, all the city was coming toward that center dot, I was thinking if you drew a cylinder coming out of the bottom, and then you drew some kind of a connecting tube, and you put a dot below the center, went up in direction 7 and direction 1, and you made a three-dimensional propulsion unit coming out, maybe made some kind of fancy system over here. See, it makes it look a little more interesting, a little more three-dimensional. See, instead of going straight across the paper, if you avoid going straight across and you always think of drawing in 3D, your drawing will be a little more fun to look at. Make it dark underneath here, a little bit of shading on the side right here. And Roland, with your drawing, instead of just having a foreshortened circle floating in space, what about putting a small little thickness on here and shading it from dark to light as we move across? Now, why don't you try adding those ideas to your drawings, okay?
Okay.
Interesting idea. Now, stay hyped up. I want to see what Dick Schaefer's doing with his objects with the 2 club members.
We've got some great results here today. We've got some models done by the club members. First of all, we worked from drawings. Here's something Vlad did. It's a wonderful drawing, very prismatic, lots of nice shading. Looks like a Hugh Ferris drawing. Tim worked first on this design with his drawing, and then from that, he made this model. Tim, would you like to put it up on top of our tower and we can see what it looks like? Now, what do you have in mind with that one, Tim?
Well, I tried to stay away from old Gothic architectural steeples. I tried to go into futuristic, and I made it more real square and triangular and added graphic drawings onto it, red, and made it come down and curve. And I made the top steeple part, the very top of the steeple, different colors, gray and red.
Well, very nice. I like the way you picked up the shape in a nice, simple form, and yet you got quite a bit of contrast with the kind of detail using this contemporary effect. I'm glad you've got one there. Want to put it up on top of our tower? And this seems just, in a way, the opposite approach. This design, you see, picks up all the little elements that we have in our tower. We talked about that before, where a spire can actually use the same elements that we have in our tower. What do you think, Madam Ann?
I'm sorry, what'd you say, Vlad?
It goes a lot with church.
It does go
Yeah.
along with church. That's what I like about it. It's very, very interesting. Two different concepts. This one, taking ideas from this model and continuing it into the spire. And this, Tim's idea, which is, again, a little bit more modern and changing it. Is there any right or wrong way of doing this?
No, there really isn't. I mean, the idea with a spire is that you just sort of do whatever you think is most beautiful. It can either contrast with it, like Tim's, or it can be very compatible, like Vlad's.
The first model that you had, what sort of design would you say that comes under?
This one, I think, probably goes along with the forms that we have here. You can see the little pointed arches, and we can find that on our tower. Also, we continue the little details at the end, sort of pick up the motif of the buttress. So I think this is probably a more traditional approach to spire design.
Well, I know that Commander Mark will really enjoy seeing your designs. We must show them to him later.
Good.
I've been going crazy with the idea of putting some kind of energy propulsion underneath the little bubble here. You see, over right in this area, I drew a tubular shape coming down with blended shading, and right here I used a square shape coming down into a tapered square and going back into the distance by putting little units stuck on the side and a tube here, and then a funnel shape also. Now let's see how the suggestions changed your drawing a little bit. Look at yours, Betsy.
Sure.
You added that right there too. What is this little area right here?
Oh, well, that's looking at the jet propulsion system.
Oh, straight on, huh?
Yeah.
And look what you did. You added a three-dimensional foreshortened square with two energy propulsion. So you took my idea and you elaborated it. That's great. Nice idea.
Thank
Let
you.
me see what you did, Roland. You just don't want to stop drawing, huh? You just keep plowing. I get that way and I start drawing. I get really in a good mood. I just keep plowing over the paper. This is beautiful. Nice three-dimensional thickness on here. And you even added shading. See, it's nice and dark down here. Nice and dark up underneath here. It's nice and dark over on this side. And also, no, you take your pencil and you get really dark in there. I like that. See, it makes this stand out, and it makes this part of your skyscraper recede into the drawing. Beautiful work. Nice here. Now, Betsy did one more for me. Can I take a look at that?
Sure.
Beautiful drawing. The shading along the side, good foreshortened circle, use of surface and size. Nice drawing. Draw, draw, draw. Stay in a super positive attitude, and I'll see you next time.